I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there was a recent gameplay video that came out from IGN. We're gonna mute the audio because I don't actually care about it. Um, Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll turn the audio on in important parts, but skip ahead. So, for anyone who doesn't know, FF16, their combat director, is the combat director who fucking worked on Devil May Cry 5. And if you're just listening to this section, you need to like watch what the combat in this game actually looks like. Like Final Fantasy hasn't had turn-based. I know there's like people like there's no direction for Final Fantasy combat. Turn-based combat is over. It's real-time action. The last fucking turn-based Final Fantasy game was FF technically 12 in some ways, but like 10. The last turn-based Final Fantasy was 20 years ago. Ever since then, there's been like these hybrid systems like FF13 with their fucking action bar thingy, where it was I had a turn-based interface, but it was real time. The enemies could attack you. You wanted to like time things like that. FF14 is FF14. FF11 is another MMO. FF15 was full real time, but the real time combat was bad. This is not bad. Like this is just Devil May Cry meets Final Fantasy. It's very flashy and is hyper compressed seeing it on YouTube. But even so, what we're seeing on the screen right now is Clive the main character, yeah. Clyde? No, it's Clive. Fighting Garuda, who is the primal, the wind primal. But even when it's just fighting like regular dudes, it just looks so hype. Now, obviously, it's sort of throwing away a lot of the like tactical, plan things outside of combat that existed in things like 10. But that, as I said, that's been dead for so long. Like, FF13 had a bit of that, and many of the combat segments, you would want to set up abilities, things like that. But FF15 had none of that. FF15 was just, bash man with sword. Okay, sword don't do much damage. Bash with, other sword. Bash with, or shoot with gun. Use magic. Like, that was the extent of the tactics in FF15. So I don't care if you get rid of tactical combat in favor of full real-time and, like, hyper-fast movement. But there is something really interesting happening with the way this game works. So, Yoshi P, director of FF14, director of FF16 now, he wants to make the game really accessible for long-time Final Fantasy fans. So even though this is going like full real time, he's adding in this like progressive difficulty slider. So a lot of games are starting to do this, probably in part because the Souls games made it so popular, but not having difficulty as an explicit option, but having it as like a part of the gameplay. So you actually have the ability to get these rings, and these rings basically make the game a cakewalk. So there's a ring for like auto dodging. There is a ring to just make the game select what the most optimal attack is in the current situation, and all you have to do is just press the attack button. So, press the attack button similar like Kingdom Hearts, for example. And there's a ring to... I want to say there's a ring to manage your pet. So you don't really have like a party system that you can control, but like FF15, there is a party, and you can kind of like, you can manage them to do certain things. In this case, you have your dog, and your dog can like, heal you, things like that, attack, and there's a ring that will let the game decide what best to do with the dog. And a couple of extra rings that all give you these like ways to choose to make the game easier. The downside is you actually take up ring slots to equip other accessories. So you can't make your character as strong, but you make the game considerably easier. And this is, I think, a good way to handle difficulty. Now, when I was talking about Dark Souls, like, the Souls games, people were like, oh, they're so hard. Souls games are difficult, blah, blah, blah. Like, Souls games have had a progressive difficulty slider since fucking Demon Souls. Like, you can choose how do you want to make the game easier. Do you want to use, pine resin and do electric damage to the enemy? Do you want to go and summon? Do you want to summon people or summon a AI summon? Do you want to go and use the Zweihander in Dark Souls 1 and kill everything? Because the Zweihander is broken and ridiculously powerful. Do you want to go and get the sword from the dragon and have this weapon that is broken until you get to Seath the Scaleless? Like, all of these little things just make the game easier without, or, using a shield. Do you want to dodge roll, or do you want to use a shield? Do you want to block, or do you want to go and parry things? These little things aren't an explicit, easy, normal, hard, extra hard, kill yourself mode, but these are things that can make the game harder. And, in the other direction, you can start the game as, I don't know what Elden Ring calls it. I actually can't remember what it's called in Dark Souls. What's the homeless class? Dark Souls 1 classes. What is the homeless class called? The Deprived, yeah, that one. You can run around with a fucking wooden club and wooden shield with no armor on. That's an option. It's absolutely an option. And it's great. It's great that this exists. Actually, was that Dark Souls 3? No, it's Dark Souls 1. Okay. But, every Souls game has a homeless class you can choose. Elden Ring has it. Bloodborne has it. Yeah. So you can make the game harder for yourself, or you can make it easier. This is a good way to handle difficulty. The only thing I don't like about this system is it's not sort of explicitly clear that you can do that. It's not explicitly clear that pine resin exists, or, obviously a shield exists, so that makes sense, but, what summons can do for you, who the best summon is, things like that, whether it's better to use a human or an AI summon. But having these rings in the game, I think, is a good way to handle it. And I'm not going to play with them. I might use, the dog one, because I don't want to micromanage the dog. But, I'm not going to use the auto dodge or the auto attack, things like that. But if you want to, and you want to make the game easier while still experiencing the story, I think that's good. I believe the game is going to have, a New Game Plus with an actual hard mode. But, yeah, I think this is just a good idea to handle it. I know some games recently are also having, a story mode difficulty, where it's, just everything dies in one hit. You basically can't die. I believe Hogwarts had this. I want to say it did. I could be wrong. But this is also a way that difficulty can be handled. I just don't like the idea of having a difficulty option that... I don't like the idea of a hard... Not hard as in, a hard difficulty. A hard set difficulty. I like it to be adjustable as you get more comfortable in the game. So whether that's the way a Souls game does it, whether that's, just being able to adjust the difficulty, I think they have their advantages and their disadvantages. The advantage of the explicit difficulty option is it's a lot easier to sort of know what the result of each difficulty change is going to be. If you have an easy mode and a hard mode, and in the easy mode, enemies have, 25% less damage and one less move in their attack pool, things like that, that's a lot easier to understand than, okay, if we include AI summons and pine resin and we farm out Titanite shards and do all these other things, what sort of difference that is going to make. If that makes any sense. Or Dark Souls 1, you choose the key at the start of the game, you go grab Havel's armor, and then nothing can stagger you. That's another option you get. You can't roll, but you can just walk through attacks and nothing will stagger you. I like the Souls way of doing it. I really do. And I hope more games like FF16 are going to be doing that. The only issue I have with FF16 is it is going to be exclusive to the PS5 for 6 months, I want to say. Which means when I want to play it, I will have to buy a PS5. I was going to anyway, but because there are a couple of games I want to play, like, you know, Demon Souls. I was gonna say a couple of games. That's pretty much. There's like 1 or 2 games. There are so few games now that are exclusive that I really want to play. Oh, Ragnarok, God of War Ragnarok. That is currently exclusive to the PS5, but will eventually probably, like with 2018, make its way to the PC. Yeah. Oh, the other thing about FF16's combat is, so there's gonna be these big fights where you are fighting. Yeah, is this it? Yeah. So there's gonna be like these big fucking kaiju fights sort of things. Where so Clive can turn into Ifrit. And there will be cases where you will actually have to fight other primals. The one they show is Ifrit versus Garuda. And it very much is just like a monster battle. But the idea is the different primals you're going to be fighting are going to have different feels to them. So, like, you know, in the Garuda fight, like, you drag fucking Garuda's face across the ground and you tear off Garuda's limbs. But Garuda is, like, you know, fairly fairly skinny, fairly, like, flimsy. So, like, this makes sense in this fight, but the other fights are going to be very different. Like, when you're fighting Odin, Odin is considerably smaller than Ifrit. When you're fighting Bahamut, when you're fighting, what's another one that I know isn't going to be in the game? Shiva. When you're fighting, I don't know if you're going to fight Ramu, because your friend is him. Maybe you fight him, but you will be fighting Titan at some point. Like, these are all gonna, especially Titan, because Titan is just a big fucking dude made of rock. Like, you don't have the same style of fight. That's probably gonna be more of like, I would imagine more of a boxing match in that case. But even though they're not like crazy combat, so when you're in the big spectacle primal fights, your combat system is much more simplified. So you have your attack, you have a fireball, a lunge, and evade. It's not like you have this full combo system that's crazy. It's much simpler. But these are supposed to be more like, they're kind of like an interactive cutscene, as opposed to an actual boss fight sort of thing. The boss fights are when you are Clive. And like, in this case, the one in here, there's one in here where you're fighting Garuda while you're small. Here? Yeah, so Clive is still in his human form, but he's fighting Garuda. Like, this is the actual boss fight, and then the other part is sort of like an interactive cutscene, just showing off how cool this is. There was another part in here that was also really cool, where Yoshi P learned a bit from his work on FF14. Where is it? Yeah, here we go. Fighting these little Garuda, I guess. I can't remember what they're called, but like fighting these little Garudas. And you might notice there, but it does sort of like an MMO thing where there are these markers on the ground. And if you stand in the markers, you get hurt. So it sort of expects you to like move around the arena in a certain way to avoid these attacks. You generally don't see it as explicit as this when you're playing a single-player RPG. Yeah, there's going to be things you have to dodge that the enemies are going to be doing, but usually you don't have fucking orange markers, in this case a green marker on the ground, telling you don't stand in the green marker. But there's no reason why this can't exist in a single-player RPG. And I think it's just cool that it does. As you can tell, I'm very, I don't want to be excited for this game. Like, that's the thing. Because FF15 was... FF15. Yeah. FF13 was really good. And then you get to the open world segment. And then it wasn't. I still have not finished FF13. Maybe I'll go back to it at some point, but man, when I got to the open world segment, the game just lost all interest to me. But knowing that Yoshipi is directing this, knowing the DMC5 combat director is on this, knowing that Soken is doing the music, at a bare minimum, okay, at a bare fucking minimum, the music is gonna be god tier. Like, there is zero doubt in my mind the music is going to be incredible. The music we've heard so far has all been great. If you don't know, Soken is the guy who did the music on FF14, and 14 has some fucking bangers. And considering that a lot of the primals in this are also in 14, and they're based off the 14 version of the primal, I know there are some remixes of 14 music in 16, which has me very, very excited, because oh my god, I love Garuda's music. I love all of the primal music, but there are some tracks in there which are really good, and I'm curious, but apprehensively so, that this game is going to be good. I want it to be good. I really do. But I don't want to be disappointed by it. Like, that's the thing.